Hey everybody, welcome back to Magic Mind. You are here, my friends, because you, like me, know that magic is an art form with the ability to move and entertain people like no other. But you know that developing this skill requires diligent practice and a detailed understanding of the craft. So my goal with this show and company is to provide you with a community to introduce you to the people and ideas that will help you to develop your magic and or mentalism. The last few episodes here have been all about mentalism, and we're going to continue that trend with a man today, Kenton Knepper. So I'm going to sum up this man in a very simple way. Both Peter Turner and Fraser Parker told me that I have to get him on this show. I think that's enough said. Both Fraser and Peter are students of Kenton. Kenton, of course, being the modern wizard, if you will. He has so many published works. I was trying to look through it to find out exactly how many. All I know for sure is that it's over 36. And Kenton, if you want to shed a little more light on that in a second, I encourage you to do so. But all I know is it's over 36, which is already a huge amount. He is the man who coined the term dual reality, which is such a staple in mentalism as we know it today, that it's just an unbelievable thing to be able to credit. So, Kenton, thank you so much for being here.
Glad to be here with you. Glad that you're doing what you are doing, because mentalism and magic need that.
Well, yeah, one thing that so I'm 19. I haven't been doing magic and mentalism for that long. That is to say, I still know what it's like to be new. And I know that a lot of new people don't quite have resources. So this is just, call it a tool or a weapon against that, against people not having resources. It's just one more place where we can learn, and then we have people like you on the show who know what they're talking about. Hopefully, so people can always.
Hope, yes.
Yeah, well, we'll see. So, Kenton, can you, in your own words, tell us who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm many things. I think the label wizard that people slapped on me many decades ago is probably fitting. I am both a mentalist and a magician.
You certainly look like a wizard. I'm going to jump in quickly and just, the beard really does accompany the wizard title.
Well, there we are. I've studied a lot of different kinds of psychology, esoteric arts, all sorts of things from cons to spiritual work. I just have a very, very broad base. And I take all of that, including music and everything else, and take all of that and combine it into how we approach magic and mentalism. And I've been performing professionally since I was 8 years old. I started creating magic before then. It was just something that seemed like I was pushed to do. And so I'm very proud of many of my students who are very well known now in mentalism, and we have changed how mentalism is done, which is exciting. I think what magic and mentalism is kind of coming up short with right now is that magic and mentalism is still working hard to try to find out how to really deeply connect with people. And we're still kind of caught up on our tricks and what will fool people, and not yet at that point where we've grown up enough to say, wow, how do I really emotionally move people in a positive way? So that's our next step of work.
I think what you just said is essentially performance art, right? We figured out the tools and tactics, but it's the performance art that's missing, the art. And one thing that you'll hear of course you know Peter Turner and you hear him talk and you know his work well, but he'll tell you that he's very open about all of his methods, but his presentation and scripting he keeps fairly closely guarded. And that's exactly what we're talking about connecting to people and how you can do that in an artistic and presentational way.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've taught lots of people to do all sorts of different methods and approaches to try to get to a more realistic and better, more human level with magic and mentalism. But ultimately, it comes down to who and what you are and what you're about and how you want to share that with somebody. I say this all the time that music, for example, another art form, there's no denying that some music is just for fluff and it doesn't mean anything and it doesn't really move anybody. But for the most part, music connects to you on some level. not every form of music, but you have kinds of music that move you and make you cry and make you have energy and get up and do things and hustle and, all that stuff. When's the last time you were suffering through something when, you know what I need? I just need to watch some good magic to feel better and really motivated. It doesn't happen very often, So that's where we're falling way short. And when I first started recording Wonder Words, I kind of mentioned that a buddy of mine at the time, Jay Sankey, and I were talking, and we were on this whole thing about, wow, magic and mentalism just are really low when it comes to moving people emotionally. What do we do? And so I addressed some of that in Wonder Words because it's vital, to do that.
And for those who don't know, tell us what Wonder Words is.
Wonder Words is a course of audio lessons that teach people how to use language and other psychological principles to connect with people, to seem to understand them, even if you don't, to move people emotionally, to influence people, to help them do what you need them to do. So it's anytime and that's where the term multiple reality later became dual reality started. A lot of principles that are sold in other people's books now are originated in Wonder Words. And Wonder Words is broken into like 12 sections of audio work. So you just listen to them and, follow along in some booklets, and you learn that words can absolutely influence how people perceive things. In fact, the whole Propolis mentalism idea really started, I think, in Wonder Words, because I had said, once you learn to use these words properly, you don't have to have props. You just simply use these words. So that's kind of how Propolis mentalism started.
You know what? This goes perfectly with some of the questions. I let people know that you were coming on the show, and people started to put in some questions, and I'm pulling them up now. But I remember one of the questions was Propolis versus props versus playing cards. So let's get into that. How do you perform? What do you advise? How do you look at it?
Sure. Well, honestly, I'll give you first. Let me give you the short version, and we'll talk about details. The short version is props don't matter. You do. I mean, I can pull out paper flowers and make them important. So it's not the props. Props have a purpose as symbols, and if you understand them, then you can deal with all of that on a much deeper level than most people ever do. And I do teach that. But on a level of Propolis versus, having a bunch of props, let me put it in perspective on one side of the coin this way. I walked into a close-up gig many, many years ago, and all these famous magicians were coming in, and one had his suitcase and one had his, a couple had their doctor bags because that was really cool back then. And I walk in and I don't have anything. And the client looks at the agent and says, "What's the deal with that guy? He doesn't have anything with him." And the agent looks at him and the client and says, "Well, he's more like a real magician. He doesn't need So, I think that's part of it. I think when you're a mentalist and you have very little or appear to have very little, that seems more like, wow, you're just really doing it, So I think that's the argument. Now, let me say there are critics of Propolis mentalism too, who say, look, there are these Propolis mentalism guys that when they hit, it's great, but when they don't, it's boring and it's obvious, and they keep pumping and pumping to try to get to the answer. And then when they reveal it, it's no big deal. And that is true unless you're working to connect with people. If you're working to connect with people, then how long it takes to get to the answer isn't what it's about. It's about connecting, If you go out on a date with somebody and you're out at a restaurant eating and you're trying to connect with them and they're trying to connect with you, and it takes a while because it's windy and it's a little bumpy here and there to try to get in sync with each other, if one of you suddenly goes, yeah, but look at this, ta-da! You go, oh crap, I got to get out of this relationship. Like now, I'm out of here. I'm out the door. You know. Now, why mentalists think that that's a good approach when you're trying to connect with people? I don't know, because it's sure creepy. You know. I think in real mentalism situations, it's too often still about ego. And, you know, ego has an important word hidden in it, go. You know, ego, you need to get your head out of the stuff, you know.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
You got to make yourself less important and the people you're working with the stars, in my opinion. And my students do that for the most part. They really do, and it's vital because look, in the old days of magic, there was a producer, a very well-known television producer, and he said he only booked big magic shows with people who were pointers. And what he meant by that is you had to be a pointer. You had to stand on stage like this and then point at the audience and go, you know, and it's like, really? Because I don't want to be in the audience having somebody going to me, you know. That's not what I want.
I've got to say, in all honesty, I can't remember ever having seen someone do that.
Yeah, but it was a big absolute in network television for
really
years. Yeah. And finally, enough of us went, you know, that sucks. That's pathetic. Stop doing that. And a lot of producers said, well, we won't work with you then. We said, fine, because, you know, we don't need to be that. Mentalism has the version that it looks like this. You know, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Don't look at me. I'm going to slap you in the face.
Right.
What is that? I have a splitting headache. You know, no, you know. And so when I talk to people, I talk to people from here, and I hold my hand like by my heart and give them other nonverbal cues that we're connecting. You know, look into their eyes and deeply, you know, to the point of some people crying, you know, that we're connecting so deeply. It's much more important to connect with people than it is to make it all about you. And whether it's magicians or mentalists, I think this is one of the big molds from the past we have to break. It's not about our ego. It's about, how do I connect with you? How do I make you, as part of the audience, feel special and important and empowered? You know? And if you do that, like everybody listening right now understands, wow, some of these things I do, I'm not sure I like Kenton saying, okay? And there's another part of them that says, you know what? I want to just love people and be loved. You know, if I could do that without looking weird, you know, and get paid for that, I'd do that, you know? And they know that, and they'd like to. It's just, how do we go do it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was a reading. Did it sound like a reading?
No, it didn't.
It sounded like we were talking.
Right.
And so that is how I teach people, whether I'm teaching them readings or mentalism or anything else. It's like, how do we do this so we connect with people and move them on a real level, right? And still I'm using methods and everything else, but nobody knows it.
Okay, so now I have a question for you, and I'm going to tie in a question that we have through the internet. You're talking about making these connections with people, and you give the example of a date and it being fairly conversational and natural. How can you create that from a stage where it's not, you know, just the medium of being on stage isn't as personal as a one-on-one conversation? How can you get those same elements and put them into that sort of performance?
Okay, great question. Well, there are lots of ways of doing that, and Wonder Words, I address some of these pretty specifically. But for one thing, most mentalists and most magicians get people up from the audience to help, right? And so if that's the case, you have a representative with you of the rest of the group, right? That's why when you make fun of somebody that's up on stage with you, people laugh, but they also feel nervous because that person is the figurehead of the rest of the audience.
Right.
You know, if, however, this person starts experiencing things that are emotional, other people in the audience will start to experience that too. And so you never speak to one person. I think if you have the mindset that I'm only talking to this one person and I have to fool them badly, you are ignoring the audience. But if you work with this one person saying, I understand this person represents all the audience and the audience is going to go on the journey with this person, then the way you approach that person is very different. Let me give you a very concrete example. I do a thing called Time Machine in Wonderwords, and it's made the rounds for decades now. But basically, I've done it on huge stages, and it's nothing but a coin trick, okay, that nobody can see, you know. But what it comes down to is this. I want you to think of somewhere you want to travel, like a year, you know, like in the 1800s, all right? And I'm going to give you a coin from like our kind of more modern times, all right, when it was minted. I'm going to give that to you. You hold on to it tightly. Now, what I want you to do is visualize. You've heard of that, you know, visualize success and it happens, it becomes reality, whatever. Who knows if that's true? But let's try this. Let's see if you can actually travel through time in your mind. So I'm not going to touch the coin. You keep holding it clenched in your hand, but close your eyes and imagine going back in time. And imagine like a clock with the hand spinning backwards. You see it spinning backwards in your mind? Mm-hmm. And then as you go out, you're going to go out of your body and you're going to soar through the skies. And as you soar through the skies, you finally start to slow down and you end up on a hill, a big grassy hill. And as you're on the top of the hill, you look down into the valley and you see there's a little pathway and it leads to a pub. And so you walk slowly down the pathway, being very safe as you walk down the path. And as you get to the pub, you can hear the sounds inside the pub and smell kind of some of the rotten beer and stuff. And you get to the door and it's really, really heavy, but you push open the door and you get inside there and you see a person and he has a coin sitting on the bar from his time period. All right. Now take that coin from his time period. Don't let him see you and don't steal from the guy. So leave your coin on the bar, all right, in your mind. And then take his coin just in your mind, hold on tightly to what you got in your hand, and then come back, go back up the hill, rise through the clouds, see the clock start turning forward again. And then when you get back in your body, open your eyes. Now, when that person does that, everybody else in the audience imagines it too.
Of course, yeah. And I know everyone listening to this is doing the same exercise.
Yeah. So that's how you do it.
Okay. All right.
So now everybody's gone on the ride with you.
Okay.
And now when the person opens up their hand and they have a coin from 1834, which is the year they tried to travel to, everybody freaks out.
I like it.
Okay?
Okay.
So there are ways of doing that. They're very specific. One is called making vivid mental images. And if you do that with people, then other people in the audience have to do the same thing. And that's just one small part, but there are many techniques like that. Yeah, they're very simple, very natural, but get everybody involved. It doesn't have to be the bam, 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 pulling everybody in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. It's cool if you don't want to go way back in history and do the hurling the headlines, you know, and look at people and say, no, you, sir, over there, you, yes, you, who's ducking down, you know, you know what you did, you know to clean it up, just clean it up. From now on, act better. Okay, you, sir, yes, Debbie, right? Debbie, here's what I want you to do. You know, you can do that and mix it in with some pre-show, you know, information you have, and people go, holy crap, that's amazing, you know, and I'm glad he didn't pick on me and reveal my secret. Oh, Lord, you know, that's another way you can get people involved, you know. I think, sadly, too many new mentalists have been taught, they teach each other. It's a really bad trend. You know, I know nothing. but I came up with this idea and I have no sense of history. I'm going to sell it to you. And they go, wow, that's a pretty cool idea. I'm going to sell it to my buddies. And then they start selling things to each other, and they don't have any real history or real understanding. And the problem with that is you don't have the experience of all the giants that came before me, right? Mm-hmm. And then since them, me and all of my students. So you want to learn. I know learning's a pain in the butt, but you want to start learning from the right people. So you get methods like that. So you start doing things that make a huge difference. I'm very big on saying if you learn certain principles, then you can apply it to everything you do. And that's what people need more than tricks. When I teach principles, I also go, and here's a trick you can do with that, right?
Right.
But if you learn principles, you can learn a trick and do that one trick, or you can learn a principle and apply it to like 500 things, 1,000 things. It's endless. So yeah, to really connect with people, oh geez, the person that just shifted in their chair and thought about stop listening, don't do that. Hang in here because there's a reason. I know it's getting a little hot in your butt right now because I said that and you're getting a little squirmy more, but don't do that. Just hang in with me because we are going to get to a point where you're going to start learning to do things like immediately, and it'll be much easier. Okay. Anyway, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was going to say, in connection to what you're talking about with stage shows, I have a question from James Scott through Facebook.
Yeah.
When developing a themed show, what is your process for selecting effects that fit?
Well, I'm going to go one step back from that because I feel what he's trying to communicate, and the answer is actually a step backwards, okay. Which is my theme is this because who am I? It's the one place most mentalists don't like to start. Peter started there. Fraser has certainly evolved into being in performance who and what he is. But before you figure out your theme, you have to figure out who you are, right?
Okay.
When you figure out who you are, then you can say, okay, here are the things in my world that are important. Again, like songwriting, if I said, I'm going to write a song, how do I know what good things to say in a song once I pick my song title? Well, I don't know. What are you feeling? When we know what you're feeling, then we can decide what you want to put in the song, right? So what do you want to say in the theme? What tricks are good? Well, what are the associations you want to make? What are the associations you want your audience to make? I did a book years ago called Mystery by Association. And basically, it taught people how to make meaning and make routines flow really easily by certain kinds of simple associations. And so the first thing I would say is, all right, well, what do you want to be about? Make that your theme. Like I can't help it. People think I'm into real magic and I'm a wizard of some kind. So, okay, that's kind of generally my theme, Mm-hmm. Now, what do I want to do to people from that? Do I want to be an egomaniac magician hurling lightning bolts at people? Or, do I want to bring them a sense of more enlightenment and empowerment? Well, okay, I want to make them feel more empowered. Okay, so now I'm going to decide on tricks that make people feel more empowered.
Sure.
But I want to do my flower trick, because I like my flower trick. Well, fine. Then associate that with something empowering.
Okay, so keep the trick and just change the presentation.
You decide how it fits. Yeah, find a way to make it fit what you care about. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Here's a question from Garish Taylor. Mm-hmm. He wants to know about your school.
Yes. Well, he's actually specifically asking about the Inner Sanctum. Because I have several different schools, and okay. But when people get to a certain wavelength, then they get to that point where they want to know about the Inner Sanctum, and he happens to be at that place. So the Inner Sanctum is for people that are very sincere and are ready to kind of live magic and mentalism, not just do tricks. Not only do really understand deep principles of magic and mentalism, but want to breathe it and live it and have it be a part of their life. So I tend to discourage people from joining because it's only meant for the people that are really at that place. But when they're at that place, it's a mind-blowing experience because you come in, you join, you start off right away. You go through, I won't say all of my work, but you go through probably 70% of it, which is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you do it in a way that is reordered so that it creates a shift in consciousness. And it creates such a profound shift, many shifts in consciousness, that people who are entirely cynical and skeptical after several years in the inner sanctum can tell you from a real scientific viewpoint, in their view, that they rely on magic and mental powers actually working. So it's not for the squeamish. It's not for the people who want to learn trick, even though you learn a ton of tricks. It's about people who want to make a real shift and change everything in their life, you know? So the inner sanctum is a very powerful thing. Now, for people who aren't ready for that, we have like the mind reading membership, which is great for people who are just starting to get into mind reading and mentalism. Mm-hmm. If you have just a little bit of, basics, that's a really great way to go about and understand how to connect better with people and how to do mind reading that's more interesting and different. And, Fraser and Pablo, Mira and other friends and students of mine, contribute to that as well. There's the Suggestion 101 and Suggestion 102 membership, which is for people who want to understand suggestion and how to make that work, both in magic and mentalism. That's also really important when you try to decide, who you want to be and how you want to do something in performance. So there are memberships, I think 4 or 5 memberships now at wonderwizards.com and at my website. But if you go to Wonder Wizards and look around, you'll see they're all spelled out in detail. The inner sanctum is a really special, it's very, very close to my heart because it's where everybody gets the real power and energy from me on a real different level, but you have to be ready for it.
If you're ready for it, how do you enroll?
You simply go to the website and you can either do a monthly kind of payment subscription, or you can pay yearly and get a couple months free that way. And it's all spelled out. So if you go to wonderwizards.com and look for the top of the tabs, you'll see Inner Sanctum membership. Just click on that and all the details are there.
All right. This same person, he has a couple questions.
Yes.
He's also asking, if you could perform one effect to a couple, what would it be and why?
Well, I have an answer, but I don't know that I want to share it because I don't want everybody doing it.
Well, you don't have to.
One of the things here's one of the things I do with couple, and I actually did this in Vegas last year at Magic and Meaning with Jeff McBride and a lot of my friends, because it's a powerful thing, and it's simply the finger body stunt where you do this, and then after a while your fingers tire, and they go together.
Sure.
I do that with a couple. And I do that saying, you're connected. You are connected. And yes, you have your differences and everything else, but you are still, because you're connected, there's a mysterious thing about that happens. So both of you hold up your fingers like this. So they do, right? And I watch and see which person is more likely to have their fingers start to move already, right? Mm-hmm. And if I see one person starting to wiggle a little bit, I go to the other person and start moving their fingers together, right? And I say, watch, I'm pushing your fingers together, but it's your fingers, but watch what's happening to her, And then they see that their spouse, their fingers are going together, and they're like, whoa, and you go, wait, watch, and I'll start pulling, your fingers apart and watch what happens to her, you know. And then I start going back and forth and playing that up like on a really huge level. And it's a way of doing kind of like sight touch or whatever, but it's done with a finger thing, and it shows how they're intimately connected. And it's a really cool thing.
It does sound really cool, and it goes straight to the heart of what you're talking about, connecting people.
Yeah, yeah. It goes from the look at my mind, I will make you wind your fingers down.
Right.
You know, it goes from that to a heart connection. Yeah. And it's about them. It's not even about me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like not even in the picture. You know?
So I have a question for you, just based on off the back of that. Are you a fan of spectator as mind reader effects?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm kind of one of the people that pushed it back in the limelight.
I figured.
Not that it wasn't done before me, it was. A couple of the mystic people in mentalism, like Orv Meyer and Orman McGill, did that versions of those things too. I just, I wanted to push it way to the foreground because I so did not want everything to be about me. Mm-hmm. And by trying to empower people, it was like, well, how do I empower them? You know, well, if I make them look like they're doing the mind reading, you know, hey, you know, that makes them feel pretty important.
Yeah, sure.
But then on the other side of me said, but I don't want them to just feel like it's all a fake, right?
Right.
Because then they go, oh, well, so everything he does is crap. You know, I didn't want them to feel that way. So I started working in some dual reality. And so I would say, look, I know some of you wonder, well, how does he do that? How does he tap into my mind? So I'm going to have a couple of you come up and help and feel what it's like to be like a mind reader. Mm-hmm. Not that you're really going to be, I'm not saying and all of a sudden you're going to be a mind reader and you hire yourself out as a psychic or anything, you know, but come on up and so you get kind of the experience in your own way of what it's kind of like, you know?
Sure.
And then when they get a cue, a prompt, right, like on a mirror that they see something written, you know, I reiterate, it's kind of like that. You know, you look in the mirror and then you start seeing things. You're seeing something now, aren't you? And they, well, yeah. And you go, great. So keep that in your mind, you know, because it seems like you really see it, right? You see it. And they go, well, yeah, I see it. You go, okay, great. Don't tell them yet, you know. And all I'll use is like dry erase marker on the mirror, right? Yeah. Say, so don't tell them yet. And I'll turn to the other person and secretly wipe the dry erase off the mirror as I turn to the other person and say, but you know what the symbol was or the card you have in your mind, right? And there's no way that they would know unless like they're really psychic, isn't that right? And the person goes, well, yeah. And say, okay, well, you looked in the mirror, you swore you saw something. Here, you hold on to the mirror too, so you can look and see if you see anything. Do you see anything in there? Well, it's wiped off now, right? So this person goes, no, I don't see anything. But you did. And the other person goes, yeah, I saw something. What did you see? The 5 of spades, you know? And the other guy goes, whoa, that's my card, you know? What it's like, you know? And now the person goes, well, it's on the mirror, you know? And you go, no, see, that's the weird part is like, it seems for a minute like it's real. It's not really there. And then they show them the mirror and it's like, nothing's there. And the person goes,
oh, that's great.
So again, when you know the principles, you can do a lot of really powerful things and empower people without it being hard. It's really easy. Mm-hmm. You know? It's very, very simple if you do it right.
So when you do a show, I would imagine it's scripted.
Yes, yes. Okay. But let me say this too. My dear friend Eugene Berger was scripted pretty much to the letter, mm-hmm. You know? And if you said to Eugene, well, I'm not sure the word trouble belongs there, he would tell you why it does, because he thought about it for a long time. Sure. Even though I'm well known for wonder words, I script and then I allow a lot of leeway because I personally don't want to come across as sounding really, really scripted. So I have a body of piece that's scripted, but then I allow space for me to go off, you know, and then come back to a point And that's why Eugene would say you have to script things, because if you get lost, you know where you're coming back to, right?
Sure, sure.
So that's it. But again, what I just said to you, that was not scripted. That was simply, I'm so used to wonder words that it comes out like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to ask this because otherwise we're going to get a ton of comments. What's on the chair behind you?
Yeah, I was going to say you're asking. So this chair has all these little monsters all over it. They're like little wild monsters. And it's there so that when I'm stuck in my heavy duty work and everything, I can look around and go, okay, don't take it so seriously. Chill out a little bit.
All right, I like it.
Everything is a suggestion in the world. And so I'm very big about purposely using suggestion around me so that I put into me what I need to keep my mind where it needs to be.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. The reason I was asking if you script your shows is because you're talking about learning the principles so that then you can do a whole sorts of other things. And what you're saying about having room to sort of improvise and do what you'd like, is that where you start to use principles in ways that you wouldn't normally have... how do I phrase this? When you use principles and create new things out of them, is that during shows, or is that in close-up, or is that in your mind and then you script it and then you put it into a show?
It's usually something that occurs to me in my mind, and then I start working out details. And writing it out. And then, as any performer knows, once you think you really know what you're doing, you go perform and you find out, oops, I need to change this, I need to say that.
Right.
Okay. And that's where you finish writing. You think you finish writing as best you can, and then you perform and you find out your audience is the rest of your editor, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Question from Joel Dickinson.
Mm-hmm.
Kenton, I'm a big fan of your work, and one of my favorite routines of yours is Time Machine. Other than Corinda's medallion, what was your inspiration behind this routine?
Oh, this is a funny story. Many years ago, Larry Becker, one of my mentors and dear friends, Larry Becker and I were flying to San Diego, which is like an hour trip from Phoenix, to do a lecture. We were doing a joint lecture together. And a lot of people back then didn't know me. Wonder Words hadn't been out yet. Colossal Killer was just coming out. It wasn't even called Colossal Killer back then. And Larry was helping market that. And so Larry said, you know, I've been watching you do readings in close-up for years. Let's, you put together a set of lecture notes and let's do a joint lecture over at our friends, Brad Burt's in San Diego. So we went, okay, great. So we're on the plane and Larry says, so Kenton, I can get these like coins that are like pirate doubloons. They're fake, but they're like the old pirate coins. Mm-hmm. Can you use words? Like, is there a way you could figure out how to use words to, like, I don't know, make a date or a name or something be on there? And I went, well, yeah, and so we started talking about some things, and Larry said, I think I'd use maybe, a trick he had that was popular on the market many years before that called hair mail to get the information about the date. And I said, no, I think, I'd do something different. And so we discussed this idea, and that was kind of it. We also came up with a trick called Southwest Miracle. I came up with on that plane ride and something else. We came up with 3 tricks literally on the flight from here to San Diego. And so I did the one trick that I came up with on the flight, talking to Larry that night at the lecture. Time Machine, I didn't do right away. I started messing with it, and then Larry said, hey, I've got a 3 video series coming out from LNL, and it has that trick kind of in it. I went, really? Because I had no idea. And so he gave a copy to myself and Doc and a couple of our guys in the 6½. And Doc and I happened to be watching it at our homes simultaneously and called each other on the phone back when it was all landline, and just went, what the heck? Why would he do it like that? We would do it this way. And so, I kind of spilled the beans on how I would do it. agreed with some of that and changed a few things for himself. And then we both had our own kind of presentational versions of it that was different. But basically it became created on the airplane going to San Diego to lecture at Brad Bird's.
So in terms of the collaboration there, is that different than how you would say you create most of your works?
Most of my works just, they come in pretty inspirationally. I had in the 80s, like one of the jokes with all my friends is like, oh God, don't take Kenton to like a hardware store, or don't go with Kenton to the grocery store, or don't go, because I would walk down the aisles and go, oh, look at this. And I go, well, that's pointless. What do you need that for? I don't know, but I got to have it, and I'd take it home, and then I'd come up with like a trick, like one night stand or something that I had out, and they'd be like, what the hell? You never leave anything alone. You always pick up stuff and you come up with things. But when it's just, I don't know, that's just the way my mind tends to work. So, so I did that really heavily for a long time. Now in later years, what I started doing was saying, I'm less interested in all those things. I still like to play with props and everything, and I do perform with some props. But I'm more about, I want to talk to people about what's their inner worlds and what's going inside with that. Because the more you adjust that, the more you change how you perform and how you connect with people. So now I do a lot of inner searching. I won't say whom, but there was a friend of mine in Las Vegas once after hearing me talk when I got finished and I performed a little bit. And the next day he pulled me aside and said, look, I'm exhausted and I need to finally get some sleep because I've been performing all night for days, you know. Mm-hmm. But he said, I got to ask you something, Kenton. How did you do that? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, how do you come up with that stuff? And I said, well, you know, it's mentalism, so you just examine yourself and your own thinking. And he went, whoa, and went to bed. And he's a very well-known, very famous friend of mine. And you know, that to me is kind of how things are now. I examine my own thinking and my own emotions and all that, and my life, and then pick it apart and then find ways to teach it in principles to help other people.
Here's another question from the internet. Steve Proctor asks, if you could claim one effect someone else came up with as your own, what would it be and why? Oh, that face told a lot. So some people are going to be listening to this without video. They need to know that you made a face there.
Yeah. My initial reaction is, why would I want to take somebody else's trick?
Because it's so good. I think that's the heart of the question. Yeah. What effect do you think is so good that's not yours?
You know, honestly, one of Steinmeyer's levitations. There's a beautiful levitation of Steinmeyer's. It's incredibly dangerous. I mean, literally, it really is. But it's beautiful. I have a couple friends who have done it on stage or on tour. And it's the first time I saw it, I literally teared up. It was so beautiful. It's an Osra levitation, but when it's done right, it looks like a superhuman, magical thing that happens. And yeah, that would be the trick probably.
I'm curious, where can we find that?
Well, I would say there's a
Google it.
Friend of mine in Vegas who was doing it, but they're not doing it right now because unfortunately there was an accident, and his wife was very severely hurt by it during that illusion. So, I would keep checking back with the Goldrake show in Vegas. That's one. Daniels did it for a while in Vegas too, and I saw him do it in Blackpool many years ago. But basically, here's how you'll know. Somebody's going to do the regular levitation, the Osra, where they cover the girl and she floats up above them.
Okay.
But at a certain point, it's going to go so high that there is no way for them to take off the cloth. And at that point, something special happens and you'll remember it if you see it done well.
Wow, okay, I'm really interested now. Here's another round of questions. I love Colossal Killer and the way you use outs and that effect. I carry it regularly in my wallet. I'd love to hear your opinions on including outs in routines versus changing an effect, but knowing it will work the same way every time.
Aha, very important. I have a principle called outs on purpose. And it's way too long for us to get into the detail here, but let me shortcut it.
Braden Ledford. I want to say the name of the person who asked the question. Braden Ledford.
Yes. But thank you, Braden. I'm glad you're using Colossal Killer, but I'm actually even more impressed that you're thinking about it on a larger level, because you are right.
There you go, Braden. He's a friend of mine. So good job.
Yeah, that's the bigger way to do it. That's exactly right. So outs on purpose is a principle that is, and this works in magic and mentalism. And basically the principle is this. I have an out. I have an out for this reading, and I have an out for this trick, and I have an out for like Colossal Killer for playing cards. I have an out for almost everything. So I can risk everything most of the time because I expect to fail. All right. So I'm not going to be freaked out when I fail because I'm already planning on it. All right. It's a very different mindset. So if I throw my wallet on the table, like with Colossal Killer, and say, think of a card, and I use my intuition and go, today you look like this 9 of spades. A lot of times people go, holy crap, right? But I don't care if they don't. Because if they go, no, man, it's the 2 of hearts. You go, really? And they go, yeah. And I go, oh, I should have known. I go, yeah, you should. They go, wait a minute. Wait, I did know. And you pick up your wallet, and show them, and they're like, oh my God, So the reason for having an out in my world is so that you can risk all sorts of things intuitively and use your real intuition, knowing that you're going to fail, but not worry. Because if you do that, you can hit things that nobody else can hit. I'll give you an example. Do you remember the time when you're really young and you stubbed your toe like by the mailbox? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay. So, and at that moment you went, ugh, and you thought, I'm more upset and angry than I think I've ever been. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you learn to take that energy, and now you look back at it and go, it wasn't that big of a deal, right?
Right.
Yeah. But at the moment, it was a big deal. And so understanding how your mind has evolved allows you to more rationally and carefully and compassionately take care of things going on in your life. Does that sound reasonable? Did I just read your mind?
Well, I don't know how I should answer that.
Yeah. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. How would I know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? So here's how I knew that. I didn't know it. It popped into my brain. I said, I'm going to say that. And I know you're going to go, what? And then I'm just going to use these outs that I know to adjust.
Okay, so let's change the story. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. So you don't know, you don't remember that? With the mailbox, the little flag, kind of like the thing that was up around by the mailbox?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. But you remember the house, right?
Right.
Okay. So in that house, and now there's a house across the street from that, and now I'm going to start talking.
Oh, okay. Just a little reframe.
Yeah. So as long as you have a ton of outs, which I teach all my mind reading students, and everybody in Wonder Words has tons of them. Once you have a bunch of outs, you go, great, I got all these outs. Now I want to try them out. Okay?
Yeah.
And so the way to practice that is to know I'm going to practice my outs. And so I'm going to say crazy things because I need them not to hit so I can practice my outs.
Right.
And then with that attitude, what happens is you get hits like what just happened with you. And then you just ride that. And you look him, and people go, wow, he's calm about it and everything. He's like, this is normal for him to read minds, And if it's not right, I don't go, oh no. Because I expected to fail anyway.
Right.
So, right? So my face and my voice and everything is going to be realistic. It's going to match the honest mind reading experience. So outs on purpose is the bigger picture of that. Trying to fail on purpose, to use outs, to practice outs, and then you have amazing hits that nobody else can duplicate.
Are you ever stuck? Like really, really stuck?
I can't think of a time.
That's fair.
Where I was really, really stuck. I can think of a few people. I can think of one corporate party last year where I was doing readings where the owner of this big corporation, who was invested in by now President Trump, I was doing some tarot stuff, and at a certain point, he and his wife came over and said, "But are we moving?" And I said, look, my approach to tarot is, and I explained it to them, So I said, whether or not you're moving is not what this is about. It's about what's going on inside of you, When you understand what that is and what's going on in the patterns of your life, then it's up to you to decide whether you're moving, By the looks of this, does it look like you're moving? Yeah. But can I say you should move? I can't say that. And then they laughed and went, okay, that was really good because, yeah, we've already moved, to a new place. And they went, okay, well, given that you moved to a new place, let's look at the cards. And we just kept on.
Okay.
So that was it.
I think this is a good place to ask what you think about combining certain arts. I mean, we know you're a magician and a mentalist, and now we're talking about tarot cards. How do you incorporate all the music, of course? How do you incorporate all those different things? Do you think credibility suffers at all when you're a mind reader who does card tricks on this as well? How do you balance that?
Well, okay, first let's address the card versus mentalism issue, because I have two friends that made that an issue. One made it up simply to sell stuff at lectures. I happen to know. And the other was Bob Cassidy, who Bob just didn't like it, And with Bob, if he didn't like something, that was it. And he didn't want to talk about it. It was the end of the discussion,
He didn't like using cards.
Playing cards that much, yeah.
Okay.
So, but here's the reality. Let's talk about historical reality. Have you ever heard of the Amazing Kreskin?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a guy named Joseph Dunninger?
Of course.
Okay. You ever hear of this guy? I think his name was, what was it? Theodore Animan, something like that.
Animal, I think.
Ted Animal or Ted Animan or something like that. Yeah. Or all those guys use cards. They wrote more card tricks than anything else. You ever hear of Max Maven?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a silly argument. Historically, it holds no weight at all. It's simply not true. David Hoy, who worked for some people that he had to be very careful about. He was one of the first people to have a self-starting car for a reason. And he looked like mentalism, but that wasn't the reason. He had to be careful given, the people that he performed for.
I'm not picking up on that at all. That's going way over my head.
That's just, only a few people need to know about that.
Okay.
David Hoy was working in some pretty high-powered, sometimes shady circles. So
Illuminati confirmed. And
so he had to be really, really good. And he, we have a whole deck of cards named after him, the Hoy deck, So I mean, it's really, really serious. Chan Canasta was like one of the great mentalists for many, many years. And what did he do? Almost nothing but outs and card tricks. So no, it's silly to say you can't. I became a mentalist for a couple of reasons. I became a mentalist not because I decided to be a mentalist, But because I did card tricks and it looked like mind reading sometimes, and people went, "Oh, you're a mind reader." And I did bending when there were very few people that did metal bending back in the 70s. So that kind of made me a mentalist. And when I moved to Phoenix, and a bunch of guys like Doc Hilford and Larry Becker and Dr. Juris, Robert Blumley, a bunch of those guys, Mark Strivings, they saw what I was doing with language and went, "Hey, come on in with us. You don't belong with those stupid magicians. You're a mentalist." You know? Mm-hmm. And so they slapped a label on me. And I went, "Okay, fine. You know, I like you guys and you're thinkers, so that's good." That's the only reason people think of me as a mentalist. I don't think of myself. I think of myself when I grew up, a magician had incredible powers. They did amusing tricks, but they also had insights about humanity and life. And they did beautiful things that meant something deeper and more important. And they read minds and they moved things with their thoughts and their heart. That was all part. If you looked in a Tannen's #3 catalog way back when, all that stuff was like normal. That was in magic catalogs, you know. It's only more recently that we've made this sharp distinction between magic and mentalism. So, and in fact, if you go to esoteric magic, the first principle of hermetic magic, like real magic, is called the principle of mentalism. So literally, mentalism is a part of magic. There's just no way around it. I think the question people really have is, can I do mentalism and magic tricks and still look like I'm a legitimate mind reader or mentalist or whatever?
Right.
And the answer is yes, you can, absolutely. But that is not about the trick. It is about you. The hardest thing to do in magic and mentalism, the real work, is transforming yourself and coming to grips with yourself. And when you do that, then you can say, well, this is who I am. So whatever I do represents that, you know? And so then if I do a trick, people can go, wow, you're really good. That's hilarious. That's really fun. And okay, well, let's try something different. Just think of something for a minute. Let's try this. You know, and then they go, whoa, and you read minds too. You know, there are people who, no matter what, are always going to believe everything in the world's a trick, you know, including, you know, everything from anything but science is a trick. Mm-hmm. Okay. And there are other people who will believe that everything is real no matter what. And though there's no way you're going to change either side of those polarities. You're just not. So it has
one of those is a lot more fun to perform for.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. But then again, look, there's a whole side of magic now, some of my friends included, who their whole performance is saying, this is all crap. It's all not true. It's all bull. And this next trick's done with a string, but you're not going to see how we do it, you know?
Yeah.
And for them, it's intellectually amusing. And for some people, they feel like, yeah, that's right, you tell them. And for that group, they're very happy, right?
Yeah.
So good, you know, good. Great. They're very successful at that. Good for them. You know, there are other people who want to tap other things and talk about bigger issues, and good for them too.
Kenton, thank you for coming on the show. Is there anything that you feel like you have to share that didn't naturally come up in the interview? Any parting words, anything like that? And then also remind us where we can find all your material.
Sure. A couple bottom line things you should take away probably from our little discussion. One is the center of all your performance has to begin with the center point, which is you. So you have to decide who you really are, what you're really about, and what you want to communicate. And from there, you can decide what tricks you do and how you want to do them and how you want to present them. So start first with yourself. That said, remember that you are not the most important person in the room. You know, the other people The other people are really where you want to give the energy. And if you give the energy to other people and the light and the applause to other people, they'll give it back to you. And lastly, readings are about connecting. So if you're going to do any kind of psychic readings or any kind of tricks that involve readings, don't think you have to hit perfectly. Understand that readings are about connecting with people. And if you understand that, everything is going to be a lot better. And lastly, because there are people who are new mentalists and people who believe in real magic too listening, I want to say this, just a minute. Good. All right. That's good. And now that I've said that to them on other levels, the way to find things is simply to go to my website, which is WONDERWIZARDS, make sure you put the S on there, wonderwizards.com. And you can go there to sign up to the Inner Sanctum, to look at all the mind reading materials and the courses that I do. There's over 60 things that I've put out. And at a certain point, I just quit counting because I only put things out when I really feel the need. And I happen to be doing a live training of people on video like this with a small group of people, a select group of people who are really serious about doing readings and really connecting with people in performance. So I do occasional sessions like that online. And if you're interested, get in on it today, because we're going to do that in a few hours here tonight. And we'll repeat that once in a great while. So check everything on wonderwizards.com, and we can go from there.
By the time people see this, it will be too late. So what we can do is let people know through Facebook.
Great. Yeah, we will do more than one. So.
All right, good. Again, Kenton, thank you for joining us. And for everyone else, please share this video. This is important to get good advice in front of people, because otherwise those 6-year-olds who are trying to learn card tricks will learn from other 6-year-olds who are posting card trick tutorials and have sticky fingers. So this is much better.
Yes, keep your sticky fingers to things that...
All right. Thank you so much, Kenton.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.